Welcome back, mobile gamers, to the 11th episode of the Tiny Nimble Podcast, a show focused on mobile gaming hosted by me, Tiny Little Games, and the son of Odin himself, Nimble Thor. Today we're going to talk about some interesting upcoming releases. Tiny has a new phone, as well as a digital war within the mobile market. Before we get too far, if you're listening on a platform where you can leave a like, subscribe, or rate this show, you're more than welcome to do so. YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes all look at engagement rates when they decide which content to feature. So if you're enjoying this show and want to help support and grow the podcast, that's one way to do so, and we would really appreciate the help. As always, we start our show with a righteous recommendation. Nimble Thor, take it away.
Thank you very much. And by the way, so great to be back again with this podcast after a bit of a break here over the summer. But I think speaking for both of us, we're really excited to be back. And I have played so many games since the last podcast episode. But one game stood out among all the other, and it's called Dark Zone, and it's we were talking about it just briefly in the pre-show. It's a great new space-themed RPG with some idle gameplay thrown into the mix as well. So what you do in this game is that you build up your character with new equipment pieces. You then head into combat on different planets to defeat monsters, and you get gold. You get more loot, lots of loot, by the way. So if you're like me and you like those types of games, I know you, Tiny, you like your loot-based, you love your loot-based RPGs. So if you like that stuff, you're almost guaranteed to love this game as well. But you get those things and you get other types of resources, and then you just slowly continue improving your character. We've got an attribute point system, so whenever you level up, you can add some attributes to for example, your auto attack, to your skills, to your defense, your HP, and so on. We also have a skill system, and you can also go ahead and install different types of modifiers on your equipment. So lots of min-maxing, and I'm a sucker for these types of games, and this one is a surprisingly great one. Kind of took me by surprise, honestly. But the best part about the game, probably, at least I think, is that it's an online game. So you and I, Tiny, could even head into real-time co-op battles, which I think is really freaking cool. Yeah, and it works in a way so that if there's enough players or if you have enough friends, you can do the real-time thing. But I'm in Denmark, you're in the US. There's a bit of a time zone difference there. So let's say we're not online at the same time, we can still do asynchronous or like non-real-time co-op battles where your character would then just be controlled by an AI. But if we're both online, there is real-time co-op, and that's really cool. We can also trade resources with other players on an open marketplace, and there's a pretty vibrant community for the game already, even though it is still very young. It's out on iOS. On Android, it's also released, but in an early access version, so in a beta version. And there's no ads and no pay to win, at least for now, and hopefully it stays that way. So that's really great to see. I think it's a relatively small development team. Didn't look too much into it, but certainly an indie game. And that does also show itself. I mean, some gameplay elements are a bit hidden. It's a bit rough around the edges for now. But the game does already have so much to offer that I would absolutely recommend people to check it out, even in the current not super polished state, just simply because the gameplay's there, the core gameplay's there. And I'm just excited to follow the game with updates. And it's the type of game that you can play for just months before getting through all the content as well, even though it does become a bit grindy. But I know you didn't play it.
System. I have not played
the
it.
Art.
Yeah,
you
I did like the art
style.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you were like you said, you were talking to me about it during the pre-show, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna download it. So I was downloading it while you were talking about it. But yeah, nice. I do like the art style, that sci-fi looking art style.
Yeah, it's so cool
and whatnot, and the idea of, like you said, being able to kind of have like co-op battles, even though we're not actually like awake at the same time, because chances are you'll be asleep and I'll be awake. So yeah, that does look interesting.
And it is, by the way, I guess I should mention the full name of the game, or at least the search engine optimized name of the game, if you go onto the App Store or on Google Play, is Dark Zone Idle RPG. It doesn't feel to me like an idle game. I play a lot of idle games. I do like idle games. This doesn't really feel like an idle game, but I guess it's called, the developer decided to call it an idle game because the combat is automatic. Like the combat itself is idle. But it's not like you can let the game just play itself for hours on end, though. So that's the thing. I mean, once you get into it, you'll see what I mean. You can play 10 levels, like automatically going through 10 levels, but then you have to fight a boss. and it means the game will automatically stop, and you have to actually actively engage or choose who you want to battle that foe with. A friend, for example, in real time or non-real time not PvP, but co-op, right? So there we go. Just a fair warning. I know some people really don't like auto systems, but I think it's very well done and worth checking out, even if you don't. But what's your righteous recommendation of this episode 11?
My righteous recommendation is Pascal's Wager. Pascal's Wager is basically the simple way to put it is Dark Souls for mobile. Anybody familiar with Dark Souls gameplay or Soulsborne type gameplay will be very familiar with Pascal's Wager offers. Yeah. It's a premium title, so not free to play. I do believe it's $3.99 US on the Play Store. It came out last year for iOS, and I think it was $9.99 when it first came out. It's challenging for one, but it's also forgiving at the same time. So anybody who might think, Dark Souls isn't for me, I'm just not interested in that. This actually has a lot more accessibility to it. So basically third person combat, you kind of hold your shield, you hold your sword out, and you got to attack at the right moment. You have to make sure that you're watching your enemies attack. You can die fairly easily, but once you get the hang of the combat systems, there's a lot of reward within this game, a lot of loot you can grab. There's a great storyline, a very dark storyline. You're trying to discover like what's going on in this world. The enemy designs are awesome. The creature designs, the combat is great. And I want to go back to accessibility. One thing about it with Dark Souls, if you die, let's say you get sent back to your camp. Let's say, I know it's not called a camp. I'm going to get corrected in the comment section, but you get sent back to a different starting point. Here it's the same. However, there's multiple playable characters. So if you have two playable characters on hand. So if you die, you can actually use your secondary character to continue the battle and not actually have to start back at a starting point. Now, if both of those characters end up dying, then of course you're going to go back and start at that starting point. But I really like that aspect because then it kind of made it to where, I'm going to try to take on this hard boss because I have an extra character on the side that I can, if I end up dying, I can try to see what I can do there. So it really makes you push forward and actually take risks in the game, which is awesome. And both characters, each character has their own fighting style. One weapon might be a sword, but for my secondary character, it was a huge coffin that he swings around and hits the enemies with. Super just out there and quirky at the same time, and the graphics are downright amazing if you look up any like screenshots of it. So it's definitely one of those, anybody who's interested in a Dark Souls game type for mobile, or just, want to dip their toes in that type of formula, I think you might be really interested in Pascal's Wager.
Yeah, I looked at it. I looked it up, and I gotta agree with you. The art style looks amazing, dark, gritty, everything I would expect from this type of game. Everything I would expect from Diablo, which we're gonna get into in a bit. Diablo Immortal or Diablo Mobile as well. But I guess Pascal Wagers beat them to the market, and I think they ran away with quite a big of an audience. The game is very well received overall, I think. And your review of it, you it sounds like you really like it. I'm glad to hear that. I should check that out. I should get around to playing that as well, I think.
Most definitely, yeah. It's worth a play for sure.
So there you go. Those were our righteous recommendations. Now we also want to talk about some upcoming games. This podcast is coming out in very early August. So we have a whole list actually. I think we have 5 or 6 games that are gonna come out later here, hopefully in 2020. I know one game you were mentioning before, Tiny, was Tom Clancy. Tom Clancy Elite Squad?
Yeah, Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. It's a mobile game basically in the Tom Clancy universe. Ubisoft announced it probably sometime last year. They also just had their kind of convention, Ubisoft Forward type thing, where they kind of release more information about it. We've talked about it before. It's like a team-based, I think you get a squad of 4, tactical type battler or whatnot. I am super excited for something Tom Clancy related. I was hoping for it to be an actual Tom Clancy game. If we actually had like a full-blown Tom Clancy type game on mobile, I think that would be epic. Instead, we're kind of introduced to like one of the more so mobile formula, I guess, of this type of game. So that comes out actually August 27th. So soon, at the end of this month, we'll be able to get our hands on it and see what it's about. Ubisoft's track record with mobile games has not been the best. So I'm hoping they can turn it around, although I am very cautiously optimistic.
Yep. They could probably do it if they really wanted to. I think they could pull it off. Talented developers for sure. I think it's just their business department that are too greedy, probably.
Yeah, a lot of money hungry in there, isn't it?
Indeed. So
and then
sorry, I was gonna get to that because you mentioned Crash Bandicoot as well. I mean, obviously, an old game. I mean, the original game.
Yeah, Crash Bandicoot is making a comeback, though. A few years ago, when they did that, they released the Insane trilogy, where they remade all the classic, Crash Bandicoots, and they're coming out with the Crash Bandicoot 4 on consoles, I think sometime later this year. But anyway, Crash Bandicoot on the Run sounds like it's going to be an endless runner. I looked it up. It is going to be an endless runner. You play as Crash Bandicoot, and you run through the jungle collecting apples and stuff and bouncing on enemies, and it kind of has that old school classic Crash Bandicoot feel. Whenever you would have those like running levels in Crash Bandicoot, I'm talking about the old games, the camera would be like in front of him or behind him and you would run and jump. It looks like it's trying to bring that back. I'm super interested in it. I really do want to see endless runners start to make a comeback, but also a comeback in being innovative and doing something new. So we'll have to see if Crash Bandicoot falls into that.
Yeah, and it's interesting looking back now. I mean, I played the old Crash Bandicoot as well on the PlayStation 1, I think, the PlayStation 1.
Yep.
And loved it. But looking back now, I realized that, as you said, the first Crash Bandicoot game was essentially a runner, not an endless runner, but it was a runner, right? Exactly. We just didn't think about it in those terms back then. But now, looking with the mobile gaming glasses that we have on right now, we're like, hey, that's Subway Surfers, but with a different character. But but then it isn't though, because I actually got the chance to play Crash Bandicoot on the Run, like the mobile version, because it's soft launched in Denmark. So I've been playing it for. Well, I haven't been playing it for a few months, but I think it's like a month and a half ago that I first played it now. And it is indeed a runner. It can be endless. So it's kind of interesting. Their take on this whole genre is that you go into a level, right? So it's almost like a level. So you have to defeat these bosses, right? These big bosses, and in order to be able to defeat those guys, you have to defeat their gang of like easier enemies first. And in order to defeat them, you have to get to them, and they are, of course, surprise, surprise, positioned at the end of a pretty long, but not endless, but a pretty long path. And you run forward and you swipe to each side and up and down, and you collect your gold and your currencies and stuff, and then eventually you get to that boss fight. You don't have to fight it though, so it's not really a boss fight, I guess. The combat is just automatic at that point. It's really just all about getting to the boss without dying, right? And in the beginning, it's super easy. But what you can also choose though is you can go on runs where you just collect resources, and you need these resources to upgrade your character in different types of way, and unlocking. You need it to unlock some new gameplay elements as well. And this is where it's partially like endless, and then part of it isn't, because you can choose if you want to continue. Like at some point the road splits up into two roads, and you can swipe right to continue running endlessly. You could continue doing that, or you can swipe left to get to the end zone. Right? So you basically decide, hey, do I want to continue running and potentially risk losing some of the stuff I've collected as well, right, if I die? Or do I want to do it safe and just stop here? I think that's kind of interesting. So it
gives you a little choice in what you want to do.
Exactly. I wasn't blown away by the game, but it is an interesting twist. And so I think it's worth checking out, finding Crash Bandicoot fan, just as long as you know kind of what you're getting into, right?
Yeah, understand that it's a mobile game.
Exactly. Well,
and it might come with those tropes.
Exactly. It comes with some of that stuff, right?
Yeah. So next up on our list of upcoming releases is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. We talked about this before in a previous podcast as well. It's basically a mobile release of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which was one of the very first co-op Final Fantasy games back on the GameCube. The reason why I want to bring it up again is because they actually announced recently that they're offering a free co-op version. So basically, if you buy the game, you purchase the game, it's going to be a premium game. You can play with a friend just in co-op mode, so they can download the game. They won't be able to like play it from the start, but you can invite them to your game, and then you play in a kind of a co-op mode. So it's kind of a way of like somebody being able to play a game who didn't even buy the game. Maybe it helps them test it out, or maybe they just want to play co-op mode with you or something along those lines. It's an interesting take on having a co-op game, having a free game, I guess, but also somebody else owning one. It's very different. I haven't seen something like that.
Now, that's really interesting. I mean, it's a user acquisition channel for the game as well, right? Like they get people to play it. It's sort of like a trial, but done in a really smart way, I guess. That's interesting. We should play that then. You buy the game, I don't, and we play it together. Sounds like
it. You beat me. I was going to tell you to buy the game.
Oh, no. Okay,
yeah, shotgun. Well, you got it first.
No, but that's interesting. I would like to see more games do that. I feel like there used to be a time where quite a few PC games actually had free trials of the game, so you could try them out before you had to pay. This is some years back, so some people listening might not remember this time, but in the early 2000s, I feel like lots of PC games had free trials. On mobile, premium games are already struggling, so why not give some sort of free trial, right? Maybe that's what it takes, to convince someone who usually only plays free-to-play games to actually go ahead and buy a premium mobile game. I like this. Yeah, I'd love to see more of this.
Smart marketing.
Indeed.
And then next on our list, we have Nier Automata. I think it's Nier Automata. I never knew how to pronounce it. Reincarnate. Basically, Nier Automata was a console PC game that came out a few years back. It's kind of like a platformer / RPG action game. Cool little art style to it. Cool, interesting story. They're releasing a mobile, I wouldn't say version, but a mobile game of it. There hasn't been much information. There's been a few gameplay, or I think it's been some gameplay footage of it, some kind of, landscape shots of it. So we're not quite sure exactly how it's going to play out. Is it going to play exactly like the console version? Is it going to be a little bit different? But so far it's looking interesting, and I did want to bring it up so everybody has it on their radar, because anybody who's played Nier Automata might be interested in it. I know I am.
Yeah, and the graphics look interesting as well. Like, it has a very distinct art style. I think they released something of a cinematic gameplay trailer.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, very little actual gameplay. It's tough to say with these types of videos, but it's on YouTube. People can go find it. I just pulled it up right now, and it looks pretty interesting. And then we have one last game, and this is a big one. Apex Legends Mobile. There's been lots of rumors, but EA's CEO actually confirmed on a meeting with investors, confirmed that Apex Legends Mobile is indeed slated for release in late 2020 already. I mean, we're in August now, so late 2020. I mean, it probably means December. It probably means delays until January or February next year. But it does also mean that the CEO of EA, Mr. Greedy himself, I guess, confirmed that Apex Legends Mobile is a thing that's happening, and it's coming soon. It should have released years ago, of course, but at least it's going to release now on mobile.
I'm super excited for it because I played Apex Legends on PC, and I'm a big fan of it. It's a battle royale, of course, if anybody's into that. But hopefully it's done well. Hopefully the control scheme is good. I mean, we see Call of Duty Mobile has had such great success. I mean, me and you were just talking about it. We're still playing that game, and I think we're going to have a date sometime to play some more of it together.
Play date.
Hopefully this has good success. EA can probably use some of that when it comes to mobile gaming right now.
They could, indeed. And I think Apex Legends is a game that, despite being released by EA, I don't think they want to screw it up. I mean, I think they're going to stick true to the PC version, cosmetics as the monetization model, and just try to go for it. Like, they obviously want to compete with PUBG Mobile and with the Fortnites of the world, right? So, late 2020, now you guys have it on your radar. It is coming, confirmed by the EA CEO himself. But there's other stuff that's been happening lately, and I know you want to give a small review of this next thing, this next subject on the list, which is that you got a new phone. So tell
Tiny
us all
got a
about
new
it.
phone, everybody. So I used to have, what is it, the Razer phone Gen 1, which was a great phone, gaming smartphone, I guess, that whole new gaming smartphone thing. But it was time for an upgrade. I noticed some of my games weren't running as super smooth. My phone was probably about 2.5 years old at that point. So I decided to get the OnePlus 8 Pro. I looked into both the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro. Of course, the Pro being the more high-end spec version. I'm not going to get into all the specs, the 12 gigs of RAM, the 120 hertz screen, which is awesome. But I am going to say basically how it is when it comes to gaming, because the reason I got the phone is for gaming. Yes, it has an awesome camera. The screen is so nice, but how does it play games? The most demanding mobile games I can find. I mean, I downloaded all of them. Call of Duty, Pascal's Wager is one of them. And I have to say, 10 out of 10 when it comes to gaming. The OnePlus 8 Pro, although it is an expensive phone, I mean, you would call it a flagship or a top tier phone, but when you're playing a game on a phone, a mobile game, especially one that can be a little bit demanding, it is amazing. I mean, there's no hiccups, there's no lag, there's no, it's just so smooth and it actually makes the gaming experience almost better. The bigger screen, because it's so wide or so long, I guess I would say my thumbs on side of the screens don't take up much of, let's say, a smaller phone screen would. So it actually makes for a more pleasant experience. Yeah, it makes for a more pleasant experience. Basically, I'm enjoying the heck out of it, and I love the OnePlus 8 Pro, and I hope they keep making phones. I never would have thought of buying a OnePlus 8 or a OnePlus, to be honest. I was always buying, Samsungs for the longest. The Razer phone was my first time I actually bought a phone that wasn't, I would say, a name brand smartphone maker. But once I experienced what the Razer had to offer, I kind of opened my eyes to let me try some other companies and whatnot. And I was not disappointed. The OnePlus 8 is a great phone, and that's my review. 10 out of 10. Tiny approves.
They should pay you for this. I wish they would pay us for this. Maybe
I wish
one
they
day,
would.
but in this case, this is, obviously not sponsored at all. But I also just happen to have a OnePlus. I have a OnePlus 7 Pro that I bought last year, also as an upgrade from a Samsung phone. And there's so many options on Android, right? I get the appeal of just owning an iPhone, because you kind of just have to decide, okay, so like which version of this year's model do I want to get? But there's only one model you kind of have to think about. So I get the appeal of that. But if you're on Android, those of you listening who are on Android, if you can afford it, I would say like the OnePlus has been by far my best gaming phone as well. So I have the 7 Pro, so 1 year older than yours, and it's still running smooth. So I guess that's a thing to point out as well. It was a bit expensive, but it also runs much better than my Samsung did after a year to a year and a half. Right? I can still play every new game, maximum settings. I think I have around 400 or 500 apps on my phone at this point. I just don't uninstall games anymore, because it just doesn't touch, it doesn't impact the performance at all to have so many games installed. So why uninstall them? I have 256 gigabyte of space as well on this one. So it's just, yeah. Here we are.
Here we are getting paid. OnePlus shills.
Yeah, exactly. I wish, but no. Anyway, moving on. Congratulations on the new phone. Glad to hear it's working out. Welcome to the OnePlus, I don't know what they call it. OnePlus
family,
Army, I guess.
cult?
OnePlus family,
I don't
that's
know.
more friendly.
Yeah.
There you go. Let us know which phones you guys are using, by the way, and which phones you're looking or hoping to one day own, if you can't afford one right now. What do you wanna play? I'm also curious to know if you guys are on iOS or Android. I think our audience is very split, which I'm glad to see. I see it all. It's just like it's all mobile gaming, right? And thankfully, these days, most games release both on Android and on iOS. So anyway, new phone, awesome. There's some news as well. Lots of news. Lots of things happened since we last talked. There's so much good stuff. Area F2, the shooter. For those who don't know, it was a shooter game released on mobile. You got to play it a bit, right? I know you did a video on it.
Yeah, I got to play it. Basically, what drew me to it was the fact that it was like Rainbow Six Siege, and that's why I played it, and it was. And it seems like The fact that it was like Rainbow Six Siege is what got it in trouble.
It was too much like Rainbow Six Siege.
It was too much. You might as well be called Area 6 Siege. I don't know.
It got nuked, right? It got nuked by Ubisoft.
Definitely. So yeah, Ubisoft basically ordered a cease and desist claiming that Area F2 infringes on their intellectual property. And if you play the game, you will see that it is very, very Rainbow Six-ish. I mean, of course, there's different, specialists in it, different type of gear. The maps are different. Of course, there's those differences, but apparently Ubisoft said the gameplay is just too much like their game, which is always this weird little tricky thing because these companies, they order these cease and desist sometimes, and if it's a game that outright copies it, like I'm talking about maps and textures and all that stuff, I get it. But in this scenario, it's more so that they're saying that they took their gameplay mechanics, which is always an odd, I guess, place to come from, because if I just feel like owning the actual gameplay mechanics is kind of odd. It's the same thing with what happened with, Fortnite and another battle royale. One of them tried suing the other one because they said, we own the property of this type of game mode, let's say. So I find that very interesting, that whole argument.
But you can't really patent or copyright gameplay per se.
Exactly. Yeah, like mechanics.
But they're trying to do that anyway, I guess. So it's gone. It's gone now. iOS and Android gone. It will return though. I've heard some things are stirring. Some things are happening. I think it's gonna get a re-release after probably removing and altering some content so they avoid the second Ubisoft nuke. and Ubisoft will just listen. Ubisoft also, by the way, I think they just grow up, and make your own Rainbow Six on mobile and make it actually great. They're probably, I guess they're probably afraid that Area F2 would be even better. I don't know. I don't mind being a bit rough on Ubisoft.
Same.
Anyway, we've talked enough about Ubisoft, and I don't want to talk more about them. You pointed out something pretty cool though. Mario Kart. Do you want to say it? Like Mario Kart.
Mario Kart is finally getting a landscape mode, everybody.
It happened.
Drop the balloons, everybody. Where's the confetti? Mario Kart's getting landscape mode. That's something I've asked for since the game came out. I actually talked about it in my review. It was one of the reasons I didn't like the game as much. So now I actually want to re-download the game to see how it feels in landscape mode, because why would you not have a kart racer in landscape mode to begin with? Sorry, I'm going to go on a rant.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It was the biggest disappointment, honestly, the biggest missed opportunity. So now it looks like I wasn't the only one who was upset. And
absolutely
not. Apparently it was a big deal. So Mario Kart is getting landscape mode finally.
You gotta give it to them though, right? I mean, launched without landscape mode is a huge letdown. They shouldn't have done that. Launched without real-time multiplayer, they shouldn't have done that. But if you look back at it now though, I think, unfortunately, many people have abandoned it. Well, I don't know. It probably still has a nice player base, but I mean, many people who tried it back then probably haven't returned to it. Mm-hmm. But I think it would be interesting to go back into it. There's so much more content now. It plays in landscape mode, as you mentioned. It has real-time multiplayer now as well. It has had so many improvements that I actually think it's a pretty decent, if not straight up, actually great game now. I think they actually got to the point where it's a playable, enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it's actually what they. I wouldn't say what they promised, because they didn't really promise any of these things to begin with.
What people expected, right?
But it's what we were expecting. Yeah.
I'm gonna re-download it after recording this now. In terms of like releasing stuff and then updating it versus just never releasing it, I guess it's time to talk about Diablo Immortal. We got a new trailer from the Joy-Con, the Chinese conference for games. I think it's called Joy-Con. New Diablo trailer. It doesn't show a whole lot, but it does show some new combat scenes, and it looks pretty dang interesting. I feel like they might have gone back and changed some of the combat, or maybe I just don't remember anymore because the wait has been so long at this point. Yeah. But I feel like some of the combat that they showed off is very Diablo-like, like Diablo PC-like.
Yeah, it does
Right?
look tweaked a little bit. We were talking about this earlier too. Like maybe they spent this extra time tweaking the gameplay and trying to get, appease fans, or maybe not just appease fans, but make it more Diablo-ish. It's hard to tell from the trailer that was released what was changed, but it does have, like you said, a little bit more Diablo look. I have a theory though. The game's not coming out, and they're just going to release trailer after trailer after trailer, and we're going to be talking about this 10 years from now of the newest Diablo Immortal trailer that came out. That's my theory.
Oh, wouldn't it be so cool if they just like drop it? Not drop it as in just stop the development, but like just like, hey,
not
by the
release
way,
it.
Diablo Immortal releasing in 20 minutes. Wouldn't that be the coolest thing ever?
Yeah, we would overload the server to download it.
Oh yeah, I think so. Here's the thing: so many people, it's doomed to fail. So many people are looking forward to the game.
Yeah.
Many are looking forward. Well, okay, so like some people are not looking forward to it, but there are a lot of people who are looking forward to playing it. Right? Some play Diablo on PC and they are optimistic. They're hopeful that it's gonna be a great. I don't want to call it a mobile port because it's not a port, but like a mobile remake, or maybe not even a remake, but a mobile version, right? A great one. And something that actually plays a bit like the PC version, I guess. Many people are looking forward to it. Many people, however, have not played the PC Diablo games, and they're still looking forward to it. And many people haven't played the Diablo PC game and are not looking forward to it. Or said in another way, they are looking forward to trash the living shit out of this game. So I think it's doomed already now. I think lots of journalists are not gonna, like, they're gonna just say, hey, yeah, it's as bad as we expected. I do also think though, that Blizzard has so much on the line, so to speak, with this game. I'm not talking financially because, Activision Blizzard, such a huge game, they have the money. It doesn't really matter if this game fails financially, but it does matter, I think, to a certain extent in terms of branding and in terms of consumer trust in their ability to release future mobile versions of their PC games as well.
That's very true.
That's sort of my take on it. I do think it will. I do think it will release, though. I hope it will.
You do think it will? Okay.
Yeah, I do think it will. But I also do think that it's gonna have a rough start. But I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that they're gonna actually continue improving it. But I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's just gonna be like gacha paid. Well, I shouldn't put gacha and pay to win in the same category. Gacha isn't always pay to win. In fact, in many cases, they can be less pay to win. Once you start diving into them, then they look on the surface and way less than many other mobile games. But, it might have those, as you talked about, mobile tropes, right? Like the gacha model, the loot boxes, the pay to win, the energy system. Please don't give us an energy system in Diablo. But it might have all of that, and maybe I'm just completely wrong, and it will actually be trash. Oh, I'm just optimistic. I'm trying to convince myself and everyone listening, I guess, that I believe that this is going to be great, but deep down inside of me is a little voice that is very afraid. And that little voice is saying, this is going to be trash.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see. Hopefully it releases next year. They're probably going to pull the whole, Corona delayed us card. Wouldn't surprise me.
They could, yeah. Even though I feel like the game has been finished for like 2 years at this point, and they're just tweaking it. But yeah, they could pull that.
Doesn't mean they can't pull the excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Other interesting things happened, right? Like China.
Super interesting. I'm gonna let you take this one away because I am so confused. No.
Yeah, so I'm confused as well. China banned. We'll try to listen. We're not journalists, but we're trying our best here to report the news. China banned 7,300 apps in July or late June. Among them, for example, like Rockstar's mobile games, right? They've been completely removed, and every game now needs a license to release a game in China, and only Chinese companies can get those licenses. So essentially, this new system, it's new for mobile at least, means that if you want to release a game, if you're Rockstar Games and you're based in the US and you want to release a game, you have to work with basically a Chinese publisher. And they will then get the rights to release the game in China, and they'll get the license from the government, and then it can release. So what this means is that I think a lot of games that were starting to become popular in China have now, they've been removed. So this is a huge step back, and it's going to be tricky for them to get back into the market because it's probably going to take a long while to get all of these licenses, right? And that means that they might be gone for many months, maybe even years for some of these games, maybe. And some may just give up completely and never re-release in China. So this is a huge blow to a lot of big sort of Western-based, European, US-based. I mean, really anything out of China. You're right.
Anything outside
of China. Yeah. Indian games as well. Lots of games released in those regions, and they're just gone now. So that happened, and kind of surprised everyone.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too because there's a huge market in China, right? There's a lot of people who want to play these other games or whatnot, not just games that are released there, but games that are released everywhere. And they're just not going to have the opportunities to play those games, which is very unfortunate,
And then it is unfortunate, but then the story gets even crazier.
I was just going to say that it gets even more interesting.
The plot thickens because I'm not sure it wasn't in a direct response to this, okay? But the timing is kind of interesting on this one. So after this happened, India went ahead and banned lots of Chinese apps, among them being TikTok in terms of apps, super popular in India, and now it's banned, but also mobile games like Mobile Legends Bang Bang, one of the biggest games out there, and Clash of Kings as well, both of course Chinese, so is TikTok. And India has now banned them. This, as I said, this isn't a direct response to China implementing this need of a license that only Chinese companies can get. It is more of a response, as far as I was able to tell, to sort of a political war between China and India that's going on right now. And I'm not an expert on this subject, so I don't want to get too deep into this. But some Chinese people, military shot some Indian military people, and I don't want to call it a war. I don't really want to talk too much more about the politics stuff because I really don't know, but this is enough of a context, hopefully, for you guys to understand that some stuff is going on, political war, bad stuff is happening, but it's now, the reason why we're reporting it is that it's also impacting the mobile space. And even if you live in the US or you live in Europe or Australia or Africa, whatever, not in Asia or China, even if you don't live in Asia or China, this might still impact you eventually. Because this could mean that Indian games or Chinese games have a much more difficult time surviving or entering the Western market. Don't underestimate how large India is. I mean, it's such a huge market as well. I mean, we keep talking about China, but India is such a huge market also for Chinese, for Chinese companies. So even though China is big, if they get banned in India, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, I don't have the numbers, but they're probably losing tens of millions, if not, probably not hundreds of millions, but tens of millions users in India. Wouldn't surprise me. This is a huge blow, and it might impact the financial viability of some of these games.
It's just interesting that the digital world we live in, essentially, this is how something can play out, where let's say two countries or two, properties, are not battling it out, let's say, per se, literally, but like battling out, like I was saying, in a digital space, a digital marketplace, where money's involved, or where, access to certain things are involved, and how, this is kind of how you fire back, or not really fire back, but, this is like where we play this war. Like, I forget what you called it, like a digital war almost. It's very interesting, that this is where we're at. And I guess it shouldn't be surprising, because in today's world, everything is internet based. Everything is, consumer based when it comes to apps or games or things such as that. But there, there's no real, the real losers are the consumers or the people, or, who just want to get their hands on these games and have fun, this and that. And then the companies that make them, let's say, they might not have anything to do with this. They're not choosing a side, whether it comes to politics or whatever the situation may be. They're just want to make a good game that people want to enjoy and have fun and potentially make some money off of it. So really, a lot of people end up losing out in a scenario like this. But I am interested to see where this goes and how it affects, others, or maybe if other countries start doing this. I mean, who knows? What if US starts banning, certain games or certain things coming out or coming into the country or something like that? Like, I don't want to see that, but it's just interesting that this is how things are playing out.
It's just, why did it have to hit gaming, right? Like, why did it have to hurt gaming? Is kind
of all things, why gaming?
It's the thing you do to kind of escape from reality, right?
Yeah. From these type of situations, yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, anyway, here we are, 2020. Could it get any worse? Apparently, yes. Is it getting worse? Maybe slightly. But There are lots of great mobile games out there to still play. You might not be able to play some of them if you live in China or India right now, and I'm sorry to those of you guys who live there, but for you guys. But thankfully there are lots of games out there, and we're optimistic. So one game I'm optimistic about is a new game by the Vainglory developers, Super Evil Megacorp. Vainglory being one of the early, competitive MOBAs on mobile. They really helped push MOBAs to mobile in the first place.
And that's true.
And for some weird reason, I don't know if I can honestly say that they helped popularize it, because something weird kind of happened where they got a super hardcore fan base, but the fan base never really grew to the point of being a great business for Super Evil Megacorp. Those people who played Vainglory loved it. Almost everyone who played it loved it. And it didn't have a lot of pay to win, and it was very nice, very competitive. But ultimately, it closed down. Right, this is old news at this point. Vainglory closed down, at least in the sense of Super Evil Megacorp not anymore supporting it and developing it because of financial reasons. But they're working on a new game though, and it's about to release, at least into early access. They call it a modern day MOBA, even though, to be honest, it looks more like some sort of like arena shooter type of thing, maybe slightly battle royale inspired, but then again I don't really know. But there's some early access trailer you can go watch on YouTube. It does certainly seem to have some inspiration from MOBAs in terms of its skills and abilities for your characters. But time will tell. I'm still looking forward to getting my hands on it. But I think a lot of you guys listening are probably excited to hear that. I know I am, at least, that Super Evil Megacorp is working on a new game. There's no denying that these people, these developers, they know how to make great games. They know how to make competitive games on mobile. It is unfortunate that Vainglory had to close down, but hopefully this new endeavor of theirs is going to be something we can all enjoy playing and going to be a great competitive experience on mobile.
It kind of, so I watched the gameplay trailer when we were talking about it in the pre-show. It kind of reminds me of, what was that game where you play as the furry creatures, Zuba. Zuba, I think it's called. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, where Zuba was kind of like a battle royale / it kind of had a MOBA feel, but it wasn't a MOBA. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's similar to that, but of course I don't want to, speak too soon and say it's exactly like that, but maybe it kind of takes some inspiration from that type of thing when it comes to battle royale. The art style does look amazing. It does look very fluid, at least from the trailer, and it does look very interesting. So if anybody can make, a comeback, or not just a comeback, but make the next generation of MOBAs, let's say, bringing it to mobile, I do believe it would be these developers, because I'm not a big MOBA fan, but I'll be honest, when I played Vainglory, I was like, this game is super cool. Like, I enjoyed the heck out of it. It is kind of what got me into MOBAs. A lot of people, it was League of Legends, let's say. I never really got into League of Legends, but I played Vainglory and I was like, I get it. This is fun. This is what this is all about. So I am excited and I am happy for them. I'm glad that they're able to continue making games and make something for us and hopefully be really good.
I'm looking forward to it. And just to correct myself slightly, on their Twitter page, I just noticed now, they're calling it a team-based drop-in, drop-out battleground shooter. So
interesting.
I think they're trying to emphasize this fact that you don't have to sit down and play through a 30 minutes or 20 minutes or 15 minutes match. You can just kind of drop in, play around for 5 minutes if that's what you want to, and then drop out. And that is I think that is something they've learned. My guess would be that this is something they've learned from developing a MOBA and running a MOBA, an actual MOBA, Vainglory, for so long, is that many mobile gamers don't want to sit down and play a 15 minutes, 20-minute match. They want to play something where you can drop in and out. So hopefully some interesting innovation here. The early access launches in just a few weeks at some point here in mid-August. So go check out the Twitter for more details on how to sign up for their early access on iOS. I think it's exclusively on iOS, unfortunately for us Android gamers. But that was it for sort of the news roundup. We do have one topic here towards the end that it really interests me, and we talked a lot about it in the pre-show as well, and we should have probably just recorded that. But it's this whole thing that's going on right now. Apple and Google are being criticized in both Europe, so by the European Union, and by the US government, and by Epic Games for their 30% revenue cut on Google Play and on the Apple App Store. So basically that's the business model. For those of you who don't know, if you release a game on Google Play or on the Apple App Store, those platforms take 30% of all revenue, all in-app purchases and so on. That's a pretty big amount of money, just think about some of the games we've talked about previously on this podcast, right? We've talked about games that have earned billions of dollars. And then imagine, Google and Apple taking 30% of that. Oh, it's a lot of money. So the question is it too much money? And is Google and Apple keeping out competition from entering the market? For example, Epic. Epic Games definitely, trust me, they definitely want in on this mobile market, right? And they want to launch their own marketplace for not only their own games, but also for other games. I am sure of it. And they're pushing really hard right now to try to convince politicians that Google and Apple are, the evil big guys, the bullies who are keeping out competition and who are charging way too much revenue from developers. So I was wondering what you're thinking about this whole, what do you think about this whole topic?
Yeah, I always thought that 30% was a lot of cut. Like I always, when I first discovered that, I think a few years ago, mainly when I started getting into mobile gaming more hardcore and, doing the channel, and I had heard that and I looked into it and I'm like, wow, 30%, like that is a huge, just like you said the numbers, $1 billion, let's say, off of revenue that this app might make or whatnot. And here's Google and Apple and they take 30% of that. And they're taking 30%, just to host the game on the marketplace. Like I understand that Steam has its own, revenue that it takes, and that Epic Games came along and did their own store, and then they boasted about how they're only taking, let's say, like 12% or 10 to 12%, of games, and that's why a lot of developers went there and whatnot. But I agree. I think 30% is, and I'm not saying Apple and Google are the evil bad guys or whatnot. I mean, it's a business, right? Everyone's trying to make money, but I do think that does need to be looked at, because at least internally by the company, and be like, you know what, maybe 30% is a bit much, and if we have, other developers or whatnot who want to pull out, let's say, because of that, maybe they might rethink it. I mean, bring it down to 20% or something. And you're absolutely correct. Epic wants in on the mobile market. They want to have their own mobile, they want to have their own marketplace, their own app store, their own Google Play Store for their games, because they've released some mobile games, or for other developers that might want to put it exclusively on there. We all know Epic Games is really interested in exclusivity deals or whatnot. Yeah. So we know that's going to happen. And Epic Games is probably going to say, oh, we're only taking a 15% cut, let's say,
absolutely. That's their business model.
Yeah, and if they are able to do that, then yeah, of course, these companies or these developers or whatnot, or publishers, they're not going to put their items on Google Play or the App Store. That's just how it is.
Yeah,
but that's why it gets into... Sorry, I'm like, my head's all exploding right now. That's why they're going the legal route. And I don't know if that's what you're going to say, because the real question is, does Apple and Google basically own like a monopoly when it comes to these marketplaces?
It's two issues at once, right? It's two issues in one. So one is the question of whether or not 30% is too much. There's really not a whole lot that can be, I mean, that's more of a, I think we just need some consumer pressure on those companies to change, like a lot of it, to change their 30%, because I don't think you can argue, as you said, it's business, right? I don't think you can argue that, you shouldn't charge so much, right? But you could make that argument in combination with the argument that, hey, they have a monopoly and they're charging ridiculous sums, right? Those two things combined make for, I'm not a lawyer, but that makes for a pretty compelling argument when you present that to the European Union or the US government, and you say, hey, these guys, they don't want to let in any competition. I mean, obviously the Apple iOS system is very closed down. So
the ecosystem,
the ecosystem. So you simply cannot have a third-party marketplace on there. You can have that on Google. I mean, Apple won't allow it. You can have it on Google on Google's Android system, but of course Google is not gonna give you any exposure, and Google is not going to allow you to distribute your third-party marketplace through Google Play. So they won't let you download this app that will then let you download other apps. So and they're in their right, I guess, for now at least, to say that they don't want to do that. But maybe that's not okay anymore. That is the discussion here that's being discussed, and it's interesting that this debate is had both in Europe and in the US at the same time right now, because I think if Europe goes ahead and says, hey, this is not okay, we're going to force Apple to open up their ecosystem. We're going to force Google to open it up as well, even more, right? Even though theoretically you can already have a third-party app store on Google, on Android. They're going to force you to do it even further, and maybe they're going to force or say something about that 30% revenue cut as well. If Europe goes ahead and do that, I think the US is gonna do the same. I honestly do, because these two cases are happening at the same time. And likewise, if the US is first, right? If they go first and say, hey, we're gonna ban this, or like we're gonna enforce some law that forces you to split things up in some way, I think the EU is gonna copy that as well. So it's highly interesting. I think for us consumers, things might change, and it might only indirectly impact us, because it's not us, it's the developers who have to give up 30% right now. But we might very, very soon get to a point where we'll have alternative app stores. We might. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's an interesting future, at least, I think.
Yeah, well, definitely, because we've been used to, ever since we've had our phones that can download games, we've been used to having just that marketplace. It's App Store, it's the Google Play Store. So, that's just all we've known. That's, for how long we've had it. So to imagine, like you said, multiple marketplaces might be very interesting. Now, Epic coming in and having one, they're a big name. And I understand that, if everything goes the way they want it to go, and let's say, like you said, the courts or whatnot make these decisions, then we'll have an Epic Game Store that you can download your games for. But then I can just see it in the future, a million other marketplaces. A gazillion marketplaces that you can download and get games from.
Yeah, and so is that better?
That's what I was getting at. Now, what position are we going to be in if something like that happens? You're just like, oh my gosh. Or like, who knows? Ubisoft might be next. Just the Ubisoft marketplace. I will not download any games from that marketplace. But just saying, golly, we've been crapping on Ubisoft all this whole podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
And change the name to Ubisoft Crap Fest.
Oh wow!
But
never gonna get sponsored ever by them now. That was that down the drain.
They'll never send me a game key to review any game.
No. At least we're honest though.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
For something. I'm not sure they agree, but hopefully the listeners do. No, but you're right though. It's interesting if Ubisoft launches their own store, Epic Games launches their own store, and so on. I'm sure there's gonna be more. Will that actually be better for us consumers? Will we see something of a future where, like, games are split, like apps are split across so many different platforms? Yeah. Some are exclusively on some platforms, some are exclusively on others. Might this actually hurt everyone in the end, right? Like, it might end up hurting developers, might end up hurting consumers in the end. But it is such a complex situation that, to be honest, my take on this is that I hope things are gonna get shaken up a bit. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure the future is better, like what you described, where we have lots of different stores and Ubisoft have their own one. But I also do think there's so many games that just don't get the exposure they deserve right now.
That's true.
And I think that is an issue. I think that is a big issue, and it's holding back lots of developers, indie developers, and larger studios alike. And I think something needs to change. So. I guess I'll have to at this point basically pluck mini review. So if you're on Android, just go search for mini review, which your reviews on there, right? Like some of your reviews on there, some of my reviews on there, and it's a place to go find some games. Sorry for that completely off the not off the record, but like off the script little plug. For
the app. Type in mini review. Oh,
do it though. Very proud of it. I developed it together with my co-founder, and and Tiny's games are on there as well. So anyway, back to the subject at hand. Is there more to say about this Apple Google being criticized for 30% revenue cut thing? What would you prefer? Would you like to see it change to the point where we're gonna have like 20 different platforms, or do you think that's
Well, I guess my take on it, and the reason why I brought that up was because I've seen that we've already kind of seen that happen in the PC marketplace. So with PC, you always had Steam, right? The Steam client, Epic came around, shook it up, and then now you have Bethesda has their own launcher to where you can buy their games. Ubisoft has their own, and some of them are good or better than others and whatnot. But what happens is your home screen will be filled with all these launchers, and when you want to play this game over here, if I want to play Doom, I have to go do Bethesda. If I want to play Red Dead Redemption 2, I have to unlock, or I have to do the Rockstar launcher. When it comes to PC, it's more of an inconvenience feature, I guess I would say, because some of those games are still available on Steam, let's say, or available on Epic. So I guess it just becomes more of an inconvenience. But what I worry about if the mobile marketplace is, like you said, splitting the player base to where like, oh, nope, you can't get none of these games. The marketplace one, I'm still unsure about. The 30% revenue cut, though, I would like to see some shake up there, because we, the consumer, we don't see that 30%. I mean, I don't want to see shake up because I'm gaining anything from it necessarily, but developers, they put a lot of time and effort, and a lot of games, they don't make it, or they do make it, or they shut down. We've seen it all the time. Durango shut down, or other stuff happening, and I'm not saying that 30% it causes any of that, but I mean, if you take that down a little bit, maybe these companies might have a little bit more revenue to do more with their games. So the 30% revenue cut, I would like to see some shake up.
Guys, let us know what you think about this Apple, Google, 30% closed down ecosystem debate, or whatever it is, issue in the comments. If you are listening somewhere, you can actually leave a comment.
All right, well, this looks like a good place to end it. We just want to thank everybody for listening to our podcast. Be sure to let us know what you think about this episode in the comments on YouTube, and leave a rating on your favorite podcasting app to show some support for the podcast. And if you don't know what mobile game to play next, you can always find lots of great recommendations on our individual YouTube channels by searching Nimble Thor and Tiny Little Games. Lastly, our mobile gaming Discord server is still running strong as ever, so if you're missing a place to just hang out and chat about mobile games, that's the place to go. So we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back here on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.